Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another podcast. Today, with me is another special guest. Since we all talk about Amazon, all those reform happening in PPC, and all those strategies that we have been discussing since we all joined Amazon, everyone comes with a new strategy, how to balance this campaign, how to manage this campaign, and a lot of changes happening in 2024. Today, with me is Carly McMillen, and today we will be talking about all those aspects on managing all those PPC campaigns that you have, whether you're a five-figure brand or seven-figure brand. We have all the answers for you today. So with me is Carly McMillan, and I will let her introduce herself.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and talk about PPC strategy. So, like Daniel said, my name is Carly McMillan. I'm the co-founder of PPC Farm. We are an Amazon marketing agency specializing just in Amazon PPC. That's all we do, and we're really good at it. We've been around for about 3 years now, and we started on Amazon actually because the parent company of PPC Farm has been an Amazon seller for over a decade, and so we take a lot of pride in the fact that we come from sellers and we are still sellers today. So while PPC is our main service offering, we absolutely help clients with everything related to Amazon, whether that's inventory related, listing related, kind of the whole gamut. And for me personally, I got started in e-commerce about 10 years ago. I started with Shopify stores working for a skincare cosmetics company based out of Hong Kong, and then transitioned over to Amazon actually via product development. So I started doing everything from start to finish for developing a product on Amazon. So everything from product research, sourcing, dealing with vendors, logistics, getting the product to FBA, all the way to actually putting up the listing and marketing the products on Amazon. So that's kind of how I got started.
Awesome, awesome. That's kind of interesting introduction. So tell me about like what was the thing that made you jump into Amazon? Like you are doing Shopify, you were doing all sort of things, but why Amazon? Like why did you choose Amazon?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge platform. And at the
Hmm.
time, 3, 4 years ago, I was like, this is a great opportunity to kind of
Yeah.
expand my own personal resume and portfolio and understand this platform because while of course Shopify is of course still around today, it's really big as well. I felt like it was a great opportunity to expand into Amazon.
Okay, so coming to another question from this point, like people have been jumping to Amazon lately. Like you have seen a lot of people worried about jumping into Amazon right now. Like you mentioned, you have came into industry for like more before 4 years. So currently, would you as well advise people to jump into Amazon and look for creating it another business source for themselves? Like what has changed in last 4 years?
Yeah, so, a lot has changed. And I think
Mhm.
that 4 years ago and definitely like, 10 years ago plus,
Yeah.
Amazon was a completely different game. And I think that my advice to anybody trying to get into the game now is don't take it lightly. It's not just going to
Mhm.
be this easy side hustle that you can do, a few hours a week. No, it's definitely going to take some time and effort and thought that goes into it. So if it's not the Wild West anymore where you can just pick a random, kitchen item and throw it up on Amazon and you're going to get sales. No, it is a whole different game. And so I do think that there's still opportunity. Like I don't want to make people think that it's completely saturated and that no, it's so competitive that you can't get in as a
Mhm.
newbie, but you absolutely can. It's just don't take it lightly. It is going to be a pretty big undertaking. So
Yeah.
do your research and make sure that you've really thought through things like profitability and that sort of thing before just jumping right in. Would be my advice.
Awesome, awesome. So let's come towards our main topic today, which is going to be like how to manage and how to balance automation and manual control in PPC. So my first question from you would be like, what are those biggest challenges that the brand face when introducing to automations in their PPC campaign? Like when they hear the word automation, what is the biggest challenge one a seller can face?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to automation versus
Hmm.
manual and PPC, I'll back up a little bit and just kind of
Yeah.
explain what I mean by that. So
Hmm.
automation basically is using some sort of software to do bid updates,
Hmm.
to harvest keywords, basically to run your PPC, right? And then manual is when you are physically in their hands-on
Of course.
keyboard every single day, making those changes, right? So Obviously, the biggest pro of automation is that it's a huge time saver and it can reduce a lot of those really tedious tasks that people will do manually. The downside of automation is that sometimes that level of efficiency can kind of mean that you are missing out on some more strategic or higher level advanced strategies because you're sort of locked in to whatever automation system or software that you're using. So I think that one of the biggest challenges that people face or that sellers face when they're trying to decide how much automation they should be using, should they start using a software versus what if they're doing it manually now. I think that the biggest challenge is thinking that automation is just kind of this magic wand that's going to
Hmm.
be able to
Yeah.
fix all of your problems, right? Like I said, it can streamline repetitive tasks and that kind of thing, but you, if you are sort of relinquishing too much control to the automation, what ends up happening is that you miss out on a lot of those kind of nuances that a human kind of needs to go in
Yeah.
and make those decisions, right?
Yeah, of course. So tell me, like, when is the time to go for the automation campaign? Suppose I'm a five-figure brand and I have like very limited number of SKUs. So am I the right person to jump for it, or there needs to be a specific criteria for that?
Yeah, so of course,
Hmm.
automation is going to help the most for
Hmm.
brands with lots and lots of SKUs. So, for
Yeah,
example, for us at the PPC Farm Agency, we have roughly a 60-40 split when it comes to automation
nice.
versus manual or human control. So that's about 60% human and 40% automation. And the reason that we need automation is because we have, thousands of SKUs and dozens of brands, and trying to have someone go in there and click all the different, bid
Hmm.
adjustments on every single term would just be insane. So of course we need automation for that. So if you're a seller who has a lot of SKUs, I mean, even over 10 SKUs, because for each SKU you might have 12 plus campaigns. That's a lot of work and it's just a lot to kind of juggle. Um, Obviously you're going to benefit the most from automation, and so that's how we basically split it up at the agency. But that sort of majority manual or human intervention in PPC is very intentional because we want to be able to have that level of additional control to make changes. For example, you're never going to be able to apply the same rules to every single client for sure, and not even every single SKU. There's things like seasonality. The same SKU, even with variations, can perform so differently, and so being able to have that ability to go in and be flexible and make those changes manually is really important to us as an agency.
Awesome. So, like, let's say we have an automation tool and we have been working good on automation, but is there any kind of transparency like we can make ensure like we are spending good money and we're getting good results? Just like we have a lot of automation tool, right? So
Hmm.
there might be some chances that we are overspending, we are like putting too much into PPC rather than if we do that on sheet, if we do that on manually, it gives us good results. So how do we measure that transparency?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's another
Mhm.
place where software and automation solutions can really shine is the
Mhm.
analytics, right? So you don't
Nice.
have to go and put all that data into a spreadsheet and try to, do your pivot tables and figure it out, right? It's
Yeah.
there for you, and it's got like, nice pretty dashboards and that kind of thing usually. So that's, I think, another area where automation can really
Mhm.
be useful in kind of in your arsenal as a seller. And so when it comes to choosing a software or deciding how to utilize automation in your own PPC management, that's one of the things I think that you should really look for. Like you said, Daniel, is transparency, right?
Yeah.
How much control are you able to have within the software, right? How much control are you able to uh, to to put into rules and different things like that? How customizable is it? Because if it's really just like a set it and forget it kind of a solution, you're going to find that you might be locked into something that you don't want to be. Down the road, you'll find that those rules are maybe too rigid. And that's actually what we found when we were first starting out and trying to figure out how to manage PPC for the parent company of PPC Farm, who in and of themselves have thousands of SKUs and over 12 brands at this point. Um, how can we do this at scale, but in a customized way. We actually ended up developing our own in-house internal software. We
Right.
don't sell it as a SaaS product or anything. We just use it internally for ourselves. But the reason we did that was just like you said, because we didn't have that level of transparency or
Yeah.
customization option within a lot of the software on the market. Now that's been a while. I think there's other software on the market now that does have a bit more granular control. But there's a trade-off there, because you need to know what you're doing with PPC, right? The software can only do so much. You need sort of the pilot to fly the plane.
Great answer. So this is going to be $1 million question. Let's say we have onboarded Carly and she's about to automate our workflow. What are your automation workflows like? What percentage of automated campaigns are going to be for our brand, and what kind of manual campaigns will be sent in? So in terms of percentage, is it going to be like 60/40, 70/30? What will be you suggest in if you are to do this?
Yeah. So when it comes to which parts of the PPC management
Mhm.
process we decide to automate or use a software for, and you can ask these same questions to yourself as a seller too. You
Yeah.
want to decide, like, what are you doing that is very tedious, and what are you
Mhm.
doing that is repetitive? What are you doing that could basically be done better by a computer? And so for us, when we looked in our workflows and tried to decide, what we should automate, those are the kinds of questions we asked ourselves. And so the big things that we automate right now are bid updates, bid management, because we utilize day parting. Like, that'd be crazy to have someone in there every
Mhm.
single hour,
Yeah.
adjusting
Yeah.
bids.
I
So bid
understand.
management is a big one. I think, honestly, if you are not using some sort of, even if you just have a few SKUs, if you're not using some sort of automation for bid updates and bid
Mhm.
management, you should really reconsider your strategy because
Of course.
I can almost guarantee that a computer is going to be able to do that math better than you, because there's a lot to consider when making bid updates. There's lots of different time periods to look at. Should I? There's probably you might have hundreds or even thousands of terms to look at. And so that's just a lot of work for a human to do. We leave that to the computer. So that's a big one. Harvesting. So when you have your discovery campaigns and then you're moving terms over into performance campaigns, that's another really tedious activity that we leave to the computer. And another big one is negating keywords. So we have a proprietary system that we built into our software that allows us to negate keywords based on the probability or likelihood that it will convert, that a term will convert for a specific ASIN. And so those kinds of
Mhm.
things, right? Those tasks where it's taking a lot of your time. You're basically falling asleep when you're doing it. You're not using your brain, right? Leave those to a computer. Find a software that can do those kinds of tasks for you, right? And then those would be that'd be kind of the first area of how I would determine what and maybe when or if you want to start using some sort of automation or some sort of software in your PPC management.
Nice. So, like, when is going to be the stage when I can make sure, like, now is the time I am supposed to do the automation part of thing? Like, suppose we have a brand, and how they can ensure that the automation tools align with their specific business goals.
Yeah, so definitely shop around. There's a
Hmm.
lot of tools on the market right now, and the biggest ones aren't necessarily going to be the best fit for you, right? Whether that's
Yeah.
because of monthly prices, or just they might have too much, right? There might be too many features that you don't even necessarily need. So if you're at the point in your business where you're deciding you've been doing everything manually up to now, you've been managing it yourself, and you're ready to potentially utilize a software or engage an agency, right? But uh, you you want to try to see how much of your time are you going to be freeing up. If you're only spending a few hours a week, you're
Yeah.
probably okay to continue doing it manually for now, and you're getting decent, and if you're happy with the results, right? But if you're
True.
starting to spend 10, 20 more hours per week just looking at your PPC campaigns, it might be time to start, looking into other solutions, because as a business owner, there's so many other things that you could be spending your time on rather than, being in there and making bid adjustments and things like that. I mean, you could be using that time to negotiate better deals with your suppliers. You could be using that time to develop a new product. I mean, there's way better ways to spend your time as a business owner. I think you should always be thinking about, what does an hour of your time cost, and how much of that is worth it, that you're where you're spending that time. So if you're paying yourself, let's say, I don't know, $20-$30 an hour, maybe it's worth it for you to spend that on some sort of automation solution.
Interesting. We do have a question like how do you integrate AI into your Amazon campaign? So I will like elaborate this question from my side. We have seen a lot of changes happening in
Hmm.
AI, Amazon AI, and we have seen like Rufus came into Amazon Actions, and we have like Amazon has also in use in like told us all those PPC campaign that we have been running are somehow being, you know, used in Rufus as well. So people searching on Rufus, once they search their brand name, maybe it's some kind of automated ad they have run in the backend, which is showing to customers right now. So keeping in view all those changes happening in AI, how do these tools align with them? Like, do they have specific criteria to, take all the knowledge from these changes happening, or like, how do you think, like, when is the human effort supposed to come into it?
Mm.
Because we have seen a lot of changes happening and it's very rapid happening.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of big
Mhm.
changes. And I know there's been a recent article that just came out from Danny McMillen and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want
yeah,
to,
yeah.
yes,
Big
yes.
fan, big fan.
Yeah, me too. It's so cool what they're
Yeah,
doing and looking into the patents. I think it's brilliant. So, listening to that recently, I mean, we've got a lot of we're really just at the beginning, I think.
yeah.
Um, and so yeah, so a lot of exciting things happening. But okay, so first, I think that I want to just kind of talk about what AI is
Mhm,
in terms of PPC management, because I
mhm,
think it's a little bit different than Rufus. And I think that AI is kind of a buzzword that a lot of people will throw around without actually necessarily understanding what that really means. So,
mhm,
when it comes to PPC management software or like bid management software, when people talk about AI, I don't necessarily. I think it's a little bit. I think it's a little bit misleading. I think that
mhm.
most good bid management software, most good PPC software is actually just utilizing machine learning. And
Yeah.
so if you are doing your research and you see the software website or whatever talking about how it has AI bid management solution, AI integration, all this stuff, they might actually just be talking about machine learning, which is honestly the better way to run your PPC, right? PPC at the end of the day, it's not that there's not that many moving parts. It's not that complicated. Machine learning can absolutely get that job done for you, right? Um,
Yeah.
and so but then but that's a little bit different than what you're talking about with Rufus and that sort of a
Mhm,
thing, right?
mhm.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right now with Rufus, we don't have any reporting on where our ads are showing up or
Yeah,
how
we
they're
don't.
showing up within Rufus, right? So at this point, we're really flying blind and we're just trying to do our best to kind of take whatever scraps Amazon is giving us
Yeah,
and optimize. Right now, I think we're at the point where we're optimizing listings more for Rufus
yeah,
than we're
yeah.
really doing PPC optimization with
Of
Rufus
course.
in mind, right? Um, so so I think we kind of need to wait until we can understand exactly
Absolutely.
what are the placements that we're getting within Rufus. What is that? Where are ads actually being displayed, and what does that look like before we can really think about how to optimize for Rufus with PPC? But yeah, when it comes to software and bid management solutions, if a software is talking heavily about AI and that kind of thing, it could be a little bit of a misnomer.
Absolutely. So there's another question from Asin, like, what are the risk factors that are involved in these softwares and all those tools that we have mentioned? So do we have such kind of risk factors involved as well?
So I think, if I'm understanding the question correctly, the question is kind of like if you are deciding which software to use, what
Mm-hmm.
risks might be involved
Mm-hmm.
in kind of making the switch to a new software, right?
Yeah.
So one of the biggest risks I think is kind of like I said at the beginning, is thinking of it as a set it and forget it kind of a solution. Like relying too much on automation can get you into a spot where you're just letting the software run. Let's say you don't check it for 2 weeks, you come back and you're like, oh my gosh, everything's all messed up. Like I have, no impressions, like what's going on. And so that's I think the big risk. So as long as you think about automation or software as a tool in your toolkit to help you, I think that you're minimizing a lot of that risk. So it does require oversight still. Like I said, you still need someone to kind of fly that plane, but it can save you a lot of time when you think about it as a tool and when it's utilized that way.
Interesting. So the world is changing, everything is changing very quickly. How do you see all those PPC automation tools happening in next 5 years? Like, how do you foresee that?
Yeah, so I do definitely think that I think that automation is going to start to get it's going to start to move away from the strictly rules based
Mm-hmm.
type of updates and automation, things like that. I think it's going to be, more intuitive. I think we're going to see a lot more holistic insights coming in terms of analytics. I
Hmm.
think we're going to see a lot more kind of uh because Amazon is so holistic, right? Like PPC, for example, doesn't exist in a vacuum. And so just having your PPC insights, is probably not enough for the average brand owner, right? You want to be pulling in, inventory levels, listing optimization types of things, right? So I think we're going to see a lot of software kind of being forced to have the sort of big picture overview. And there's software out there that has that already right now, but I think that everybody's going to be kind of forced that way, right? And then, I do think that AI is going to continue to play a role in automation tools. But at the same time, uh, us as users and consumers need to just be a little bit wary of what that means, and ask the questions like, okay, well, how is AI really being used, right? What is AI doing within the actual like logic of the automation of the software?
Interesting. So, coming to my last question of today's podcast, you see, like the CPC that was back in 2024 is going to be very much different in 2025. All those profits are being squeezed from sellers. Let's not talk about the bigger sellers. Let's talk about majority of sellers who are like 5 to 6 figure sellers.
Hmm.
So how do you see their future in terms of spending too much money on PPC and not getting that much results? So this is going to be like, uh, if they opt for like the automation tools and they pay their fees as well, they are paying a lot of fees already, and then now they opt for another automation tools which might not give them the results, which may give them the results. So how do you see that happening in next a couple of years when the CPC will be doubled and a lot of things will be changed?
Yeah, I think there's for sellers right now in that kind of at that level,
Mhm.
I think it's going to have a huge impact, right? But at the same time, that's been happening for years, right? The CPCs
True.
have been going up, and I think they're going to keep going up. I don't think that that's going to change. It's a
Yeah,
big money maker for Amazon, and they're not gonna let that go
of
to the
course.
wayside, right? So, but in terms of how you can handle that,
Mhm.
so I've been talking a lot about automation tools for PPC, but there's also a lot of great automation tools for repricing, right? And so I think that
Yeah,
that is going to be that would be something to absolutely look into as well, when it comes to managing your profitability, because the price is a huge lever that you have as a seller, that you can pull in order to get to your most optimal pricing and therefore profitability as well, right? So um, CPCs are higher. That can be okay if you're able
yeah,
to, get more profit because your price is higher, that kind of thing. Obviously, it's a tricky balance, right? Because you can't go too high, or you'll completely slow down your sales. Can't go too low either, or you'll cut into all your profits, right? So that could be an area where I think automation could come into play for sellers as we start seeing not only CPCs, but like you said, all Amazon fees. Amazon
yeah.
finding creative ways to charge sellers more and more fees.
Of course. Of course, of course, absolutely. So you have been into Amazon and you have been helping all those sellers when it comes to PPC management and all sort of things. So if people are to connect to you, like what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, so you can visit my website, ppcfarm.com. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Carly McMillen, just like it appears below. And I'd be happy to chat. And also, as far as the agency goes, we do offer a 60-day free trial for all new clients. So you can kind of put us to the
Nice.
test, and we can put our money where our mouth is, basically.
Awesome, awesome. It was lovely to have you, Carly, and it was great having one to have you and listen all those aspects from automation campaigns and manual campaigns. So thank you so much for coming in, and everyone who has joined us, put their questions, and put these compliments. Thank you so much for these comments as well. It was lovely talking with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.